little adzuki beans, and they're kind of similar in size to these little pink kilos that I showed you a minute ago, okay? Hey, Wendy, good to see you. Parker, good to see you. Like I said, shout out questions if anybody's got questions as I'm moving forward. Let me bump my notes here. Okay, I said it a little while ago, the main cooking method for beans is simmering. Lesson done. That's all you need to know, right? Actually not. It's a little more complex. Like I said, there's tons and tons of little tips and tricks for these beans, okay? I said it a minute ago, and I say it in all my classes, it's not just about what you're doing, it's about the desired result. And what I'm looking for, I said it a minute ago, is a tender exterior and I want a soft, creamy interior, okay? It should be smooth and creamy. And we're gonna talk about how to get there, okay? Long cooking times might overcook the exterior of your bean, especially if you're using these dried beans. And so we tend to soak those beans ahead of time, so it's not just one long continuous process. If I pre-soak them, I'm rehydrating them, I don't need to cook them quite so long, and I won't wind up with so many broken up beans. You know, that's fine if I'm making refried beans or something like that, but again, most of the time I'm looking for a beautiful, perfect little bean, like a diamond, right? And so there are a couple of different methods for soaking. I'm noticing one of my pots has come up to a boil. I'm going to turn that down, make a little adjustment here, and just get it to a strong simmer, and we'll talk about that in a sec. Hope everybody's still doing good. Let me get another sip here. Let's see. Elizabeth, good to see you. Christy, good to see you. Awesome. We got people rolling in. They just keep on rolling in. What else are we going to do? It's quarantine, plus it's raining outside where I am. Let's see. So how long do you soak these beans? Thank you, Aniko. I was just going to talk about that. You've anticipated me. Let's talk about two different methods for soaking beans. Let's see. Is it true that soaking helps reduce the amount of gas? You know, I have heard a lot of old wives' tales about that. I am not a doctor, okay? I'm not a doctor or anything like that. So I am not sure. I'm not sure how you would even measure that. Would you have one person as the control and have them eat beans and measure their toots, I guess? And then the next day you use that same person as the control, have them eat a different bean that's not been soaked, and we measure their toots. I don't know how they do this. They must have a tootometer or something like that, right? I've heard other things like, oh, carrots in there help, cut that down or whatever. I just don't know. To me, things like that, they're all old wives' tale. I say, if anybody has ideas, throw them out there in the comments. But for me, I embrace the toot, quite frankly. It's good for you, to let out a little something. You don't want to leave that stuff in you because, my goodness, you'll blow an O-ring if you're not careful, okay? So, two soaking methods we're going to get to, okay? Let's see. Oh, I got my Aunt Dawn watching out there. Good to see you, Aunt Dawn. I hope you're feeling well. All right, up there in Oregon. Let's see. Now, the most common method of soaking beans is just to soak them overnight, okay? So when I soak them overnight, one thing I want to kind of throw out there, or one idea you need to know is you need twice as much water as you have beans. So you've got a container halfway up. Let's grab a water glass here, okay? I got a container and I go halfway up, it's halfway full of beans. I'm going to fill it all the way up with water, basically, not all the way to the top, but I want double the amount of water because as those beans soak up water, they're going to expand, and if you don't have enough water in there, as they expand, half of those beans are going to be up out of the water. So you need enough water for all of the beans in there, okay? As you're doing this, you're basically just putting that water in and leaving them overnight. My suggestion for this, and this is something that I've seen a couple times, use a metal container if you have it. I have put beans a couple of times, or I've seen beans a couple of times put in plastic containers, and when they expand, the beans kind of get jammed together down in the bottom. Instead of going up, they get tighter and tighter in there. And I've come in twice in my career to a walk-in floor that's all covered in water because the beans actually busted the bucket that they were sitting in. Never trust a bean, okay? Never trust a bean. They're tricky guys, okay? And so always use a good strong container, twice as much liquid as you have beans, and you're gonna be a-okay with that method, okay? What do I got here? I think it's just a matter of getting used to eating beans, okay? Let's see. Oh, I've heard baking soda helps. I've heard baking soda kind of smashes your beans though, and there's that. Also, baking soda can destroy some nutrients as well, so I tend to avoid that as well. tend to keep it simple, guys. You know, the beans ain't gonna hurt you if they make it to it. I mean, it's not a big deal, okay? I think another person kind of brought up the fact if you're used to eating beans, it's not a problem. Many of you have probably heard, and I'm sure there are people out there that know a heck of a lot more about nutrition and science and all of that stuff than I do, okay? I am a kitchen brawler. I'm just a cook, and it's all I've ever known. But I will say that if people have a low fiber diet and all of a sudden they start eating a lot of fiber, it doesn't matter if it's beans or whatever, and beans are high in fiber, by the way, but it doesn't matter if it's beans or whatever, you're gonna toot, okay? If you go from low fiber to a bunch of fiber, hey, get ready for the gassers, guys. It's just gonna happen, okay? And I think that's kind of part of the whole bean thing. I gotta turn down another pot here. My lentils are going strong here. And now that I've turned them down, I want to let me show you my simmer here real quick, okay? Come with me. You can see that that is not like a rolling boil in there, but it is a fairly strong simmer, okay? I tend to feel like simmer's just not quite strong enough to cook these beans. We've got to get those hard beans. We've got to get that moisture kind of worked all the way into the center, right? And so I don't want, I want to get it as hot as I can, but not a rolling boil that's going to knock my beans to pieces. You're going to see this whole conversation is about keeping whole beans, not busted up, okay? So I'm trying to get my lentils to go about the same rate of speed here. And we're looking pretty good over there. These lentils are going to cook up really quickly, so I got to really keep an eye on those guys. They will overcook when you're not looking, like as soon as you turn your back, okay? Never trust a bean is what I'm saying, okay? So I really got to keep an eye on those guys. The pink kilos, those heavier beans, they're going to take a while, and I don't need to be so worried about them. I think I'll switch these guys around so I can watch them better. I'm trying to get used to doing the camera and the bean here, okay? All right, so we talked about one soaking method. It's just like double the water, throw it in the fridge overnight. You get up the next morning, throw beans in a crock pot, turn it on, and they'll cook up for you. They're going to be beautiful, okay? The second method is just in case you forgot to soak your beans last night. This used to happen all the time. I lived in San Antonio, Texas. We did so many beans there. It was a convention hotel, and we just moved people in and out of there all day long, every week, and it was like nothing but fiestas, right? So we had to have refried beans and pintos and Tex-Mex stuff, you know, Tex-Mex beans. We had to have that stuff all the time, and I can't tell you how many times I walked in the morning and it's like the night crew didn't soak the beans last night, right? So I had to do this second method where we just put beans in a pot, pour the water in there, we bring it up to a boil, and then we turn it off. What we just did is we're soaking the beans just like we did before, but when we add heat is a catalyst. You science-y folks have probably heard that term before, and it's gonna make the soaking go a little bit faster. Once it comes to a boil, we turn that off and let them sit for 1 hour, and then we turn the fire back on and we let them go. You're gonna get more broken beans using this second method, but if it's an emergency, you wanna take that hour-long step to just bring them up to a boil, turn them off, and then fire them up in an hour. You gotta take that step. Otherwise, your beans are really gonna cook down to nothing. I mean, imagine if I just throw dried beans into a pot and start boiling, the outside is just gonna get cooked and the inside's gonna be hard as a rock, and the outside's just gonna the skin will fall off and the outside just melts away until you have these little teeny hard little peas inside there, right? So we want to get that soaking done. It does not work any other way. You gotta soak these things, okay? Kathy Johnson, good to see you. What's this? Toots are better than decreasing the nutrients. That's good stuff. Okay, so that's the soaking methods. 2 soaking methods, one overnight and one just water, bring it up to a boil, turn it off, stand for a minute, stand for an hour, and then turn it back on and start cooking, okay? Next, bean cookery. After soaking those beans, add some aromatics in there and then bring it up to a full boil. The aromatics, well, you just saw them a little while ago when I started out. I threw in a little bit of onion, some carrot, some celery. You people probably know this combination as mirepoix, right? If you've ever watched Food Network or something like that, or listen to a guy like me talking, right? So I just threw them in big pieces that I can lift out easily and discard, okay? Also, other aromatics, I threw in garlic, I threw in bay leaf. You can take it any direction, but I usually keep it very simple. Like I said, I want to teach you guys how to make a neutral bean that you can flavor in different ways as the week progresses. You can make a big old pot and be eating all week long, and it's a different dinner every single night. Neutral beans are your friend, okay? Let's see. Eric Miller, good to see you. So much handsome and just one video. Aw, you can't talk to me like that. It makes me feel all funny, okay? So just stop it now. All right, so other tips. Never trust a bean. This is where it really starts, okay? When we are first starting, you want to pull out those dried beans. You want to lay them out on that sheet pan that I showed you earlier, right? That sheet pan. And you're going to start sorting through them and looking for any little busted beans, because those busted beans are going to turn into mush. Get rid of that stuff, right? Look for dirt. Look for dirt clods. Look for rocks. Look for nuts and bolts. You will find funk in your beans. Anybody that knows what I'm talking about, give me a shout out here, because there is funky stuff in those beans. You want to pick through them. Never trust your bean, okay? Avoid cooking legumes with acids or salt. Acids and salt both do things to proteins, and beans are very high in protein. What acids and salts do is they denature those proteins, and they're going to feel a little like there's discussions of, hey, the exterior of the bean's a little bit tougher. That skin gets a little bit tougher. Also, I talk about those creamy interiors of the beans. If I pre-salt those beans, I tend to feel a little bit more graininess inside them when I'm eating them. And so I tend to leave salt out and acids out until the very end. And by the way, acids, it's like, what are you throwing acid in your beans for? Well, think like tomato or something like that, right? Tomatoes are acidic. You want to leave those out. I kind of tend to fold them in later on in the cooking process so I don't get tough beans or grainy beans, okay? So I leave out salt and acids, okay? Let's see. We talked about sorting the beans. I was talking about this just a second ago. As my beans start getting close to the end, you'll taste a bean, right? And it'll be like, oh gosh, it's still not done. They've been going for hours and hours, right? I taste that bean 5 minutes later, and now it's mush, okay? They are gonna feel firm until they are almost done, and then all of a sudden they cook on you, right? And so it's like, I think they got 20 minutes left. Hey, don't turn your back on them. They are gonna overcook on you, right? Never trust a bean. They just won't do what you expect them to do. Again, I love beans. I don't mean to cast aspersions on the beans' reputation or anything, but they're tricky guys, okay? As you check for doneness, this is like classic, right? You'll taste one bean. Oh, wow, it's perfect. It's the most perfect bean I've ever tasted. The outside is tender, the inside is creamy. And so I figure the whole pot is done, and then I pull it off the fire, and the next, when I go to try and taste them again, none of the other beans are cooked. For some reason, I picked the one bean out of the pot that was done. None of the other ones are done. So always taste like 5 or 6 different beans to make sure the whole pot is done. This one has got me so many times over the years, so I always check like 8 or 10 beans. I'll sit there and eat a couple spoonfuls of them to make sure the pot is done. Never trust a bean, okay? Let's see. Since beans are high in protein, finally, last little thing that can go wrong for you. They're super high in protein. Those beans can go bad really easily. So if you're cooking a big pot of these beans and you want to be eating it all week long, you need to take that big pot of beans and you need to cool that puppy off really, really fast. I mentioned I worked in San Antonio, Texas, and we were just like, every party had beans on it, so we always had beans going on. If the guys cooked beans last night and didn't cool them off, I'll come in the next morning and the beans are still in the walk-in in this giant container, and they never cooled off all the way. And so they just sat there at kind of body temperature basically, and bacteria just went nuts. They loved it. It's like a jacuzzi for the bacteria in those beans. It's all food and protein and the perfect temperature, and your bacteria are going to go nuts and they're going to start growing. So many times I came in the morning and the beans that we cooked last night are sitting there bubbling. They're fermenting bloop, 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 when I walk in the door, and it's just like we got to pitch those and we got to start over with beans, or let's get some cans of refried beans out of the storeroom or something so we can get by this day and hopefully learn a lesson from it. I pulled out a lentil and I was going to pop it in my mouth, but I'm feeling it and I can just tell this guy's not even done. So we're going to keep that one going. Beans are rolling. My squash is rolling. I'm going to just check my squash real quick. I doubt if it's doing much yet. Oh, it's not doing much.